When I first started reading lead sheets and charts, I was learning from an old fake book, sometimes called Book One. And in that book, when I encountered a chord that I didn't know, I turned to the very last page, and there was a chart that gave me all the notes to all the chords. Eventually, I became tired of looking up all the chords, and that's when it became time to learn them all and commit them to memory. Regardless of the type of music you play, this is essential to your development as a musician, and I'm going to show you a few methods in the next few minutes that'll help you to do that. Now, it might take you a few months before you actually become fluent in accessing all your chords from memory, but it will be time well spent. So first, learn your major triads. A major triad is 4 half steps, and then another 3 half steps up from any note, 4 plus 3. Here's a C major triad built 4 plus 3 above C. And here's an A flat major triad, built 4 plus 3 above A flat. But even better is to learn them by keyboard shapes. Group 1, the C, F, and G major triads, are all white notes. That's the 1, 4, and 5 in the key of C. You should drill on these. The group 2 triads, A, D, and E, all have 1 sharp, 1 black note in the middle. That's the 1, 4, 5 in the key of A. Drill on these. The third group, A flat, D flat, and E flat, have the black notes, the flats, on either side of a white note in the middle. They're sort of the mirror image of group 2. And they are the 1, 4, 5 in the key of A flat. The fourth group is the miscellaneous group with no real easy pattern to remember. That's the G flat or F sharp major triad with all black notes, the B triad with 2 sharps, and the B flat with 1 flat. After you have drilled on the triads in groups, learn to play them chromatically. You can do this with the left hand using the fingers 5, 3, 1 on each chord. Make sure to drill the broken chords both ascending and descending. Now, 7th chords are built by adding the intervallic 7th above the triad. Try to get good at locating major 7th intervals and minor 7th intervals. Major 7ths are easy. Instead of counting up 7, count down 1 half step from the octave, and you'll have a major 7th. For example, a major 7th above C is B natural, a half step below C, and a major 7th above F is E. And a major 7th above G is F sharp, half step below G. Next, try adding these major 7ths to each of the major triads that you learned. These will be called major 7 chords. When you've got it figured out, go ahead and practice them chromatically. You can do the triad in the left hand and the 7th in the right hand to start with. And then when it's comfortable, try to do it all with one hand, or even both hands if possible. Next, we're going to build dominant 7 chords. This is done by adding a minor 7 interval above the major triad. Now, the minor 7 interval can be found easily by going down 2 half steps from the octave, or you can think of it as a whole step below the octave. The dominant 7 chord is sometimes called major minor 7. But when you see them written on a lead sheet, it just says 7, as in C7. Now go back to your chromatic exercise of major triads, play them slowly with your left hand, and add the minor 7th interval with your right hand. If If you have the facility, do it all with the left hand, or even both hands. Now you're building dominant 7 chords. Let's now move on to minor chords. We'll start with a minor triad. Just lower the third of each major triad 1/2 step. Or use the formula 3 half steps followed by 4 half steps, 3 plus 4. First, practice them in groups by altering the third down a half step of each major triad. And then practice them chromatically as well. Finally, we'll add a 7th to each minor triad to create 7th chords. The minor 7 chord is the most common, where we add a minor 7 interval above each minor triad. You can practice this chromatically, as we did with the other 7th chords. Another less common 7th chord built above the minor triad is the minor major 7 chord, where you place a major 7 interval above the minor triad. This sonority creates an almost film noir kind of secret agent sound. The next triad quality is diminished. Just take the major triad and lower the third as well as the 5th 1/2 step, or use the half step formula 3 plus 3. Usually, diminished chords are indicated with a small circle. Practice them in groups, and then chromatically. For 7th chords in this category, we'll look at 3 types. First is the fully diminished 7th chord, built by adding a diminished 7 above the diminished triad. We notate fully diminished with a small circle before the 7. To find a diminished 7th interval, you can count 3 half steps below the octave, but also keep in mind that this is a completely symmetric chord. In other words, up from the root tone, you'll find all minor third intervals. Using our half step formula, this would be 3 plus 3 plus 3 again. Next is the half diminished 7th chord. Just place a minor 7th interval above the diminished triad. Some people call this a diminished minor 7 chord, but you'll see it in sheet music notated as a small circle cut through with a slash. You may also encounter its notation as a minor 7 flat 5 chord. Most unusual, but rather effective, is the diminished triad with a major 7 interval. Try this one chromatically as well. Now the last triad type is augmented. Simply a major triad with the fifth raised 1/2 step. The half-step formula is 4 + 4. The augmented chord is usually notated with a little plus sign. Again, practice in groups and then chromatically. Let's look at two types of seventh chords above the augmented triad. The most common is the augmented dominant chord, a minor 7 interval above the augmented triad. It can be notated as C augmented 7 or C7 sharp 5. Much less common is the seventh chord that has a major 7th interval above the augmented chord. You should play with this one as well. And one final topic here is the added 6th chord. It is easy to build because the added 6 is always a major 6th interval above the root. And you can find it easily by going 2 half steps above the 5th. Try building major 6 chords. And then try building minor 6 chords. So there you go. Now you have a systematic way to learn and practice all your triads and 7th chords. Of course, we didn't cover all the chord tensions, alterations, and upper structures, like the flat 5, flat 9, sharp 9, 11ths, and 13ths. We'll save that for another video.